and welcome to the UK On Mute podcast, where we are raising the volume on whispered conversations in our communities. Today, we are thinking about culture. In September, in this part of the world, usually Culture Night Festival is celebrated, both in the Republic of Ireland and in Northern Ireland. And that got us to thinking about culture and about the differences in culture between ourselves and the local community. And we thought that today we wanted to look at culture shock with a Northern Ireland flavour. I am Raquel McKee. If you're new to Unmute, let me introduce the ladies who are here hosting with me. First, we have Yolande Robertson-Green.
Hello, everyone.
We have Angela Ifonlaja.
Hi.
And we have Natasha Latcham.
Hi.
We are delighted that you're with us today. Now, promise me one thing. If we make you laugh more than once today, would you promise me that you will get in touch with us? It's at UK On Mute, at Instagram, Facebook, all the usual channels. So, let's get into it. Ladies, culture shock. What springs to mind? I'm going to start with you, Natasha. What springs to mind when I say culture shock?
Well, immediately what comes to my mind is something that takes me off guard, either in a positive way or negative way, something that's just totally out of the blue. And if we want to go into maybe one of my first experiences of culture shock, having moved to Northern Ireland, that would be the maybe I should say, coming from an island in the Caribbean, coming to Northern Ireland, and I'm thinking, okay, it's Ireland, Northern Ireland, it's an island, people are going to eat a lot of fish. That was not my experience, and I'm a pescatarian, so I only eat seafood. And I was like, why is it so hard to find fish dishes on an island? And I'm still asking that question until today,
Is it really an island? Or is it just called Northern Ireland?
It really is. And I have to say, Natasha, in the Caribbean, we have seafood vendors at the beaches on the seaside, and you certainly don't get that when you come to Northern Ireland. What do you get on the beaches here, ladies? Ice cream.
Very true. That's because people only go to the beach. Yeah, but that's because people go to the beach only in the summer here.
Yeah.
So, I suppose ice cream would probably be very relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. And even though there is fish and chips, it tends to be one of two types of fish. It's either haddock or it's cod. I'm like, but there's so many more, so
be careful.
I'm still getting accustomed to that.
What kind of fish can you get at home on the seaside?
You can get snapper, you can get hind, you can get grunt, you can get parrotfish, though they are protected species now, so nobody eat any parrotfish.
Okay.
But,
Yes, miss.
doctorfish, sprat, all kinds of fish.
But the fun thing is actually a part of culture shock here. Now we're talking about fish is when I am at work and I take my smelly food in, I take fish head. And I'll eat it. Listen, I'm doing it deliberately, unapologetically. I'm eating fish head, fish eyeball.
Head, you crunch it up in your face.
Love it. Hands up. Love it. And then my workmates are always like, right, whatever, love.
Yeah, that's it. I think I've only been to one fish place here and had the head on it, and everybody looked at my plate like it was weird. But it was the most natural thing to me, and I very much ate my fish head.
There you go. Yes.
Pastor Angela, what about bones? Do you eat bones in your culture?
Oh yeah, definitely. Cracking bones. It's a sign of maturity. Crack bones, you haven't quite arrived. You're going to know how to suck out the juice and all the nutrients.
The marrow, yeah.
Yeah,
the best part.
Children will be like, when my husband finishes with chicken, and what's left of the children are like, dust.
And of course, in Northern Ireland, They don't eat the bones,
Yeah.
no. And it's a
No.
very strange thing for anybody to see you actually attacking your chicken
your
bone
bone, yeah.
and
Yeah.
really going for it.
Yeah.
Do you know another interesting thing that I find is that if you go into some of the Asian shops, that's where we get our food from other parts of the world. In
Yes.
the Asian shops in Northern Ireland. If you go into
A
the
couple of African shops do.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, some
Yes,
African
yes,
shops. But if you go into those shops, it's almost like a shady deal. They say, "Do you want some hard chicken?"
Hard chicken.
Hard chicken.
Boiling chicken.
And I mean, I suppose the thing is because obviously we live in Northern Ireland, the way that I explain it to people from St. Vincent that I talk to, I say, think of me living on mainland St. Vincent versus Mustique or Canawan or one of the other 32 islands and keys that we have. So in their minds, I say Northern Ireland is a Mustique. Or Northern Ireland is a Canawan. So in my mind, or the way I explain to them is I would have to be going over to London to be able to send my barrels or to be able to pack up all the real
Yes.
food
Yes.
and bring it back
Yes.
here.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and they kind of like get it, like, oh yeah, because you can't get everything on Mustique. We don't even get fresh water sometimes on Mustique. So they get it. You know,
So
but
funny when you have people coming over, like if I have family coming over from London, for example, I'm like, yeah, they're like,
Bring
"What-
this.
what's your shopping list? It's all food.
Yes.
Don't bring family clothes. Just stuff it with food.
And the hair stuff.
Oh, and
And the hair stuff.
Yeah.
They have to have the hair stuff.
yeah.
Whenever I travel, half of my suitcase is hair products. That lasts me for like 2 years.
And I suppose people just find that so crazy, hard to believe.
Yeah, but to give, sorry Raquel, to give credit though, in recent years I've gone to Tesco or the main supermarkets here and they've got dedicated aisles where I can
Yes.
find Milo, sardine,
Yes.
and I'm like, ooh, okay. And there's like Boots
Yes.
has now started to bring some dedicated black hair products.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, to
Yes.
give credit,
Yes.
things are really happening. And just to
And
answer,
makeup and some makeup.
Yeah,
that's, you
yeah.
know, shade appropriate.
I know.
And Sally's will stock some of the hair products that we want. So, we're getting there, slowly but surely.
Yeah, yeah.
But I want to go back and pick up on something you said, Yolande, which was if I want to send a barrel. Now, for some of us, that makes a lot of sense. We know what you're talking about. But we are talking about culture shock here. And some people will be thinking, what? What do you mean by send a barrel? Oil?
Well, you see, I suppose therein lies the problem in terms of culture shock. And honestly, when I think of culture shock, it's only one word that stays in my mind: shock. I mean, that's really it. And people are flabbergasted to learn sometimes about the things that we actually eat and the things that we actually do. So sending a barrel home is something that a lot of Caribbean families would do when they live in foreign, as we say, North America. And it generally is a barrel of supplies for your family back home. And it could be foodstuff or groceries,
Toiletries.
clothing,
Clothes.
toiletry, toys for children. Because obviously it's probably all the things that are cheaper to us living in these parts of the world than to our families back home. So it's a way of repatriating, our what we've earned here, suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Angela, do you do that in the Nigerian
Oh
culture?
yeah. You don't. I mean, if you're traveling, back home, you don't go empty-handed. There's expectations.
There is the
And
expectation.
so you have those that you you do it joyfully.
Yes.
It's part of you just want to be a blessing and you want to share that.
Yeah.
So you have your list. Whether it be your uncles, your
Aunties,
aunties, your
your grandparents,
whatever.
Yeah.
You have that, and then you have some. Which is like extra stuff, so that you just bump into so and so.
Oh yes, here you go.
So you have to think of those things that are general, multi-purpose that anybody
Yep.
can. So you have the specifics and you have the generals.
Yeah, and you come back with an empty
That's it.
suitcase.
Oh, no.
Food. Oh
You
yes.
have to reverse, yes, because whenever I go home
And
now,
clothes.
I want to come back with a lot of stuff.
With the
Yeah.
local clothes.
Yes.
Right,
Oh,
right,
yes.
right.
Get stuff made out.
I
Yeah.
come back with my bags of tea, the local tea
Local
Yeah.
that we don't get here.
Yes.
You might come back with some fruits or something that you eat on the plane.
Brilliant.
Things like that that you
Oh,
don't
and
get
the other thing with Nigeria, you come back with a fresh fresh hairstyle.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everybody knows when you just come in like, oh yeah.
Yeah, she's just been home.
Rock
Yeah.
it for as long as we can.
Yeah, especially braids.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, as soon as you arrive, everybody that you see here is like, did you get that done at home?
Yeah, they just
Yes, they
that's
did.
like, this is not from this room.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not to mention the dance moves and all those things you know you haven't been able to catch up on. Of course, you catch up on all of those things and bring it back.
Bit
when
too
you
old
come
for
home.
that for me now, love.
Oh, come on.
Hey, wait.
No,
No, honestly, Raquel, for example, my country, and perhaps we'll talk about this a bit more in terms of, I suppose, when we get a bit deeper, my country really has a history of carnival, I suppose, like Natasha. And the very last time I went home, man, I looked at carnival in a whole different light. And I'm a girl that grew up playing in costumes, bands. Last time I went home, these 2 feet could not do it. I don't know. Was it old age? Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just nah, can't do
I
it.
was home in
Can't.
2017, and like Yolanda says, I grew up in carnival as well. I've been playing carnival since I was about 5 years old, and I had like the backpack with all the feathers and all this stuff waiting
Yeah.
down. And you would go on the road dancing behind these bands from maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, well, of course, when you got older, you'd be coming home like 6 in the evening, 7, 8, depending on what time you made it across the stage. And I went home 2017. I didn't play with the costumes, but I played what we call t-shirt
T-shirt bands, yeah.
And after like 45 minutes in the sun, I was like, I used to do this. I was dying. The sun was, woo, was the sun always this hot?
Exactly.
It's
Seriously.
crazy.
No, can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. No, this has all been so much fun just talking about these things and hearing all the differences and so on. But I want to just add a little bit of a harder question. And the question is there ever a time when culture shock is a big deal? Is there ever a time when culture shock can be a big deal? I think I'm going to pose that one to you first, Yolande.
I mean, there's a couple of examples, but in my mind, I can think of one thing. And I say this reservedly because I don't, there's no judgment. But I remember when I first came here, and perhaps at this point, I'm still a bit worried about it, is maybe the drink culture and perhaps the way that when in my country as a girl or we go out with your girlfriends, no chance you're gonna be that drunk that you don't know what's happening. But I've been here perhaps in the days when I went to the clubs and whatever, and to me here you have to be messed up to have had a good time. And it was really at a point where it was really concerning, and I thought, my goodness, what is going on? But people are people everywhere we go.
Yeah. Each to his own.
Yeah.
Different strokes, different folks.
Any other suggestions then, ladies, about other times when culture shock can be a big deal, Natasha?
I can't think of any particularly in terms of that I've experienced, but I mean, I can think of, offhand, say maybe in a lot of Caribbean countries, and I'm sure maybe for some African countries as well, it's a part of the culture to discipline your child, like physically discipline. If they talk back or whatever, you give them 2 quick on the butt, and that's accepted as as normal.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying like abuse your child, but there's a quick tap on the bum, and in this part of the world you can
Not
get in
accepted.
trouble for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't discipline your child.
Absolutely.
So I think probably for a lot of people coming from maybe the Caribbean or other places where that is a part of their culture, that is something that they will have to bear in mind. And if your child acts up in the local Tesco, please do not pop them.
Hey, hands up for that.
Yes, you give them the look.
The look.
Or you give them the naughty corner. When we were growing up, there was no naughty corner.
I know. I remember my son Tassa. They were teenagers. Well, almost when we came here. One was 12, and the other thing was 13. And I remember a couple of years into getting here, learning in school. One day he came home and we had an argument, and he goes, "Oh, you can't hit me anymore. You can't." I gave him the look, and he was shouting really loud for the neighbors to hear. I said, boy, remember where I come from. And that was what happened after. Nobody knows.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
It will remain a mystery.
Oh, it's funny actually when we talk about the look. You know, people always. It's funny. I was on a work call the other day, and one of my children comes in, and then they just kind of burst into the room, and I just looked at them, and just like, and they just reversed.
Yeah.
And the person one of the people had said, "Did you just give that mother a look?" Oh my God, did you see it? But I remember there was a time that it was a friend of mine, local from here, had said to me, you know, I don't know how you do it, but you give that look to your children. I'm like, does anybody see that? She said, I tried it with my daughter one day. She said, I tried it with my daughter one day. That I just looked at her, and I just, Mommy, what's wrong with your face? What's wrong with your face, Mommy? I don't know how you get it to her, but it doesn't work for me.
It's in the blood, it's in the DNA.
And I mean, and just because we're talking about being a big deal, I had this conversation with Natasha, and probably she doesn't remember. We were just chit-chatting, and I know we did talk sparingly about perhaps the whole idea, Angela, and you could weigh in on this maybe of FGM or female genital mutilation in some countries. I mean, I'm from the Caribbean. I don't have any experience or a lot of knowledge outside of perhaps, you know, scoping studies that I've been part of here in Northern Ireland with FGM. But I think in that context, that's when culture could perhaps become a big deal. I suppose it's now illegal here in the United Kingdom.
It
So,
is.
yeah.
And in other cultures as well.
Yes,
There's
yes.
a change of
Thank
change of
goodness
thinking.
it's not become
Absolutely.
illegal.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I've seen recently in, and I think it was Sudan, that they have now outlawed it.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, based on what we've seen in the scoping studies, etc., I'm relieved to hear that. I
Yeah.
suppose there are some people who wouldn't share my opinion, but
Yes.
I certainly am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So just want to continue a little bit more on the line of local customs probably that cause culture shock. For instance, I'm thinking of the fact that you cannot walk down the street in your bikini in Jamaica. It just won't do. But, you know, just thinking, are there other local customs that either you have experienced or you've watched other people experience in your culture at home, or you've experienced here, or other people have experienced here? I'm going to start with...
I'll jump in.
Go on.
I'll jump in. One thing is, when I was growing up in Antigua, most people, you don't wear your outside shoes inside. Especially if you're going to someone's house that you've never been to before. It's just seen as polite. You get to the front door, you take your shoes off.
Man, that shoe walking all sorts of things outside.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah, you either take it off just outside the front door, or they will say you can take it off inside the front door. You wait for them to tell you, no, it's okay, you can wear your shoes.
Yeah.
You don't just assume you can and come in with your shoes. And when I first moved here, I was like that. Even at my own home, I take off my shoes. Anybody place I go, winter, spring, whatever, I'm taking off my shoes. And people, why are you taking off your shoes? It's fine, come on in, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting against my inner, like, no.
You almost feel like you're dirtying their house. Like, no.
Yeah, even things like we were taught, like, as well as a young lady, not to put your handbag on the ground because it encourages poverty. So I would see girls at the bus stop, you know, waiting for buses to go to work, and they just put their bag on the ground, not even on the bench, like on the ground, or they in the bus, they put it on the floor of the bus and all this stuff, and then they go home, and what do? They put their handbag on their table, or they're going to put it on their bed. And now in these times of lockdown and COVID and things like that, and people are now paying attention, and these are things that we were taught from, you know, young coming up. So that has been a culture.
Yeah, well, I have to add to that my personal shock when I came to this country, and in somebody with whom I was very familiar, and in whose home I was very familiar, I found the shoes on the table.
That's a mistake,
The shoes,
Raquel.
no, I mean literally.
A brand new pair of shoes.
No,
Raquel, it's just a mistake.
worn shoes on the table. It was in transition to another place, but it was on the table.
All
Like
right.
the dining table?
Absent-mindedness.
On the table.
Let's give them that.
I don't know about that. Another
Baby
one.
shoes.
Another one. Culture shock for me.
Baby shoes.
Another one for me was the photograph of babies being bathed in the kitchen sink.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Never
When
seen that.
I first saw it, I was like, huh? And she was
I can't
explaining
wrap my
that,
head
you know,
around
this
that
is-
one.
This is a
In the
culture.
sink?
Yeah.
Really?
So because sinks were bigger, you know, kind of like big sort of rectangle squares.
Explain it. The Belfast sink. Huge sink.
Yeah. So they would play the baby, and I remember seeing that. I was just like,
Where the dishes? Where the dishes?
No,
Oh, Saeed. That one's OCD. That one don't listen to.
Natasha.
I just thought it was the cutest thing. I didn't think about it.
Well, see, and to be fair, when we think of culture shock, a lot of it potentially, going back to Natasha and inviting poverty, we put in your handbag on the ground, a lot of it is perhaps just myths. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But because in my mind, honestly, this is where it gets weird from Caribbean country to Caribbean country. Now, I'm a small islander, so I think of myself. And when I journeyed to Jamaica to study, listen, there was culture shock there in so many ways. First of all, I don't even want to begin to talk about the shocking everybody here was purple, pink, blue before I even knew about that. Everybody fingernail was out here. So St. became like that. And you know the biggest one for me? I went home to a countryside, Portland, I think. Hi, Jamaican people, love y'all. I went to Portland, and man, I near died when I realized that the people backyard and front yard was a burial ground. That people were burying their relatives in their front yard.
You get
I
that in
could
some
not
places in
sleep
Africa,
that
Nigeria.
night. Yeah. no, that's a no.
Now, I was afraid of the cemetery because twice I've lived where my in an apartment complex where our fence for the complex was the back fence of a cemetery.
Yeah.
So I was never afraid, and people always like, "Why would you live there?" I'm like, "Because nobody wants to come." But I don't know if I would like having it in my front yard and my backyard. I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, I'm walking over my ancestors every day." Maybe it's protection. Maybe it's good. They're right there. They're watching you. They're taking care of you.
It kind of leads me nicely into the next little question that I'm going to ask, which is, can you experience culture shock in your own country?
Oh yeah.
Fast answer.
I mean, take a country like Nigeria.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got a myriad of different languages and dialects. You know, so you've got language and you've got dialect. You could go from one village town to the next, and it's a completely different language. And obviously, with that goes the culture as well. So you would have so I'm Yoruba. And we are very big. I mean, across various African countries, you know, respect is a big thing, right? And same thing in the Caribbean, right?
Yes, it is.
But how it's expressed would vary.
Yeah.
So as a Yoruba person, you've got to do, you know, is the curtsy as a woman or the prostrate as a man. You know, that's gone from different levels, right? It used to be like flat out. That's like, but you try that with a traditional person. So there's always that, you know. So even my children are born and raised in the UK, but they know that if somebody comes to greet us, you know, an auntie comes, an uncle, but it's, you know, that you've got to show that respect. Whereas I think some other cultures, even within Nigeria, might not have that, you know. So you might get a handshake sort of thing, and whereas in my culture, you stretch your hand out to an elder.
Oh,
You know,
then you've offended them.
Yeah. You've got to wait for the elder to stretch out their hand first. Yeah, and just on that issue, you know, of you know, respect as well. I remember that when so I came to the UK when I was young, in London, and I think most of my memories of culture shock was from when I was young. I remember that there was an occasion where we had PE. This was my primary school. We had PE, and I'd forgotten my PE kit.
Oh, you forgot.
No, I wasn't trying to get out of PE. I just forgot. So I said to the teacher, I'm sorry, I don't have my, PE shorts or whatever it is. And the teacher said, well, just do it in your pants.
Your pants? Your underwear?
No. She said, do it in your knickers. That's it. That's the word she used.
Oh, stop.
In your knickers. Yeah. In that time, it was okay apparently to do it in your knickers. And for me, knickers at that time, in the way that we would use it, from where I was coming from, knickers were shorts.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
she said,
Yeah,
do it in
you
your
think about
knickers.
this, yeah.
And I said, I told you I don't have my knickers. She gave me the strangest look.
You're not.
I would have called knickers pants.
Yeah,
Right? So when she said
yeah.
knickers, I'm thinking shorts. So I'm telling her I didn't wear knickers to school. And as a child, I'm trying to decode the look of horror on her face. And then it became clear to me that, oh no. I do have knickers. I do. You think my parents sent me to school without knickers, you know? So that was one. And I remember another one was I was in secondary school, and for some reason I'd fallen behind with my homework on this particular occasion. So the teacher's telling me off, and this thing of respect kicks in. So I'm looking down. Right? She's talking to me, and I'm looking down. Now, bearing in mind, we've been in the country for quite a few years by now. It's my secondary school, but I'm looking down. And then she looks at me and she said, "Look at me when I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
It's rude not to."
And you're like,
For me, that's a total culture shock.
Opposite, yeah.
Because
Yes.
for me, it's rude to stare into the face
Yeah,
of another.
yeah.
So you look down. I said, "But I'm sorry, but you know," and I explained to her that in my culture, I said, "Well, I'm not your mother."
Ooh.
So that's how. So
okay then.
Yeah.
do one thing at home, do another thing at
school.
school.
Yeah.
Jumping on that pants for underwear thing, that led me into a very interesting situation at my GP.
Oh, Tessa.
Let's just say I went for my knee and I was saying, do I need to take down my pants? As in my trousers. And he gave me a very weird look. And it took me like 5 seconds. I meant my trousers.
Oopsie daisy.
And just to make it patently clear for those who haven't fully understood that, in the UK, what is called pants in the Caribbean
Or in
is
the
referred
US,
to
yeah.
as, or in the US, is referred to as trousers here. And what is referred to as pants in this country is what in the Caribbean and the US and other parts of the world is referred to as your underwear.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I still slip up every now and then because after how
Yes.
many years of saying pants, it's
Yes,
kind
it's
of
hard
Yeah.
just
to
comes
make
out.
that transition.
Yeah, I meant trousers.
Well, we've had lots of different experiences that we have been able to look at as we've thought about culture shock with a Northern Ireland flavour today. I hope that you have had opportunity to laugh today, and you made me a promise that if you'd laugh more than 2 times, you were going to get in touch. So what you need to know is at UK on Mute, get in touch with us and let us hear what you laughed about. You might even want to share 1 or 2 of your own stories. Well, we are looking forward to being with you again. Make sure to join us, and if you had fun, recommend us to somebody else, one of your friends. Join us in our next episode where we will be considering raising children with dual culture. Of course, you know where you can find us. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.